In this session, we talk about some basic aspects about fluidization. Fluidization itself is a very deep concept and needs in details discussion to understand the phenomenon and its applications. In this talk, we'll cover the very basic aspects of fluidization. Now, to start with, what is fluidization? The dictionary definition of fluidize is to cause to flow like a fluid. So fluidization is the process to cause something to behave like a fluid. Now among the three phases, two are fluid, so the only remaining is the solid. So fluidization refers to the process of making solids to behave like a fluid. Now, how is fluidization caused? So, if a fluid, meaning a liquid or gas, is passed through a bed of solid particles at a very low velocity, the particles in the bed do not move. However, due to the relative motion of the fluid and the particles, a drag force is applied on the particles. And as the velocity of the fluid increases, the drag force increases. And if the fluid velocity is kept to increase, at some point the drag force will be significant enough for the fluid to cause the solid move and become suspended in the fluid. So this process is referred to as fluidization, and the suspended solid bed is called the fluidized bed. What are the fluidic behavior of the suspension? So if you tilt the bed, the top surface remains horizontal. This is the quality of a fluid. The fluid surface will remain horizontal if you tilt a fluid bed. So the suspension is behaving the same way as a fluid bed. Depending on the relative density of the suspension antennae particle, the particle will either sink in the bed or float on the bed. So the suspension will show now another fluid property, meaning that the object will either sink or float in it. And the fluidized bed can be drained through pipes and valves. The fluidity is one of the main advantages of fluidized bed operation because for transportation, the fluidic behavior is one of the key advantages of the fluids. We'll see later that there are other advantages of having a fluidized bed. For example, having larger area to cause more heat transfer, more mass transfer, or more catalytic activity. Now, some examples of industrial uses of fluidization. First one is what is called as catalytic reactions. Cat cracking or catalytic cracking is one of the very popular methods for cracking in the petroleum industry. In that process, a fluidized catalytic bed is used, and that causes large surface area and causes rapid catalytic reaction. For chlorination of olefins, also a fluidized bed is used. Similar to that, for conversion of methanol to gasoline, fluidized bed catalytic reactors are used. Other cases involve non-catalytic reactions, where the solid bed acts as a heat sink or source. Example is the chlorination of hydrocarbons or roasting of ores to release volumetrias or incineration of biological sludge. In this case, because of the very large surface area, heat transfer can be very high. So either you can remove heat where the bed acts as a sink, or you can add heat whether the solid particles act as heat source. Other applications involve drying. For example, in the coal, cement, or limestone industry, the drying is carried out by suspending the particles in a hot fluid, typically a hot gas, and that causes the drying. Also, for separation of fine particles from coarse particles, fluidized bed is used. So in this case, it's being used as a classifier. Other applications involve heat treatment of large object. When a large surface needed heat treatment, a fluidized bed at a high temperature is used for the heat treatment. Another application is coating. For example, if a large metal needs a coating, the resin materials can be fluidized and the metal surface is heated at a high temperature, and when it passes through the fluidized bed, the resin fuses on the solid surface and a uniform coating is created on the metal surface. Those are few of the industrial examples of fluidized bed applications. Definitely there are many other examples. These are just some sample applications. Then why do we need to use a fluidized bed? One important thing is that the flow of fluid is very easy to control and automate. The transportation of solid is problematic in many sense. On the other hand, transportation of fluid is more or less straightforward and very easy to control and automate. So when the solid is fluidized, its control and automation of its flow become easier. Through fluidization, large heat and mass transfer surface area can be created. And as you know, heat transfer is directly proportional to the surface area. Also, the mass transfer is directly proportional to the surface area. So through fluidization, large surface areas are created that cause large heat and mass transfer. The mixing is rapid and rigorous. That's how it gives uniform temperature and concentration for heat transfer or the reaction activities. As we'll see later, that when a bed is fluidized, the pressure drop across the bed remains constant, and that gives opportunities to operate fluidized bed at high velocities because the pressure drop remaining constant. On the other hand, if you increase the flow through a packed bed, the pressure drop will increase. On the other hand, for a fluidized bed, the pressure drop does not increase with velocity. So you can operate the process at a high Reynolds number. And if you can operate it at a high Reynolds number, the mass transfer coefficient, the heat transfer coefficient also increases. So you can increase the heat transfer area. Also, you can affect the mass transfer and heat transfer coefficients as well. Now, there are some disadvantages as well. For example, the bubbling may occur so that you don't really get a uniform flow of the fluid through the bed. Fluid may form bubbles, and in that case, so catalytic activity or heat transfer activity suffers a lot, and it's difficult to predict the formation of the bubbles. And particles may break up if we are using a catalyst. Catalyst particles may break up. Collision causes erosion of the vessel that is used for fluidization, and the rapid mixing may cause non-uniform residence time for catalytic reactions. So these are some of the disadvantages along with the advantages we get with the use of fluidized bed. Now the design questions that you need to answer regarding a fluidized bed operation is that what is the minimum velocity that needs to be maintained to cause fluidization? Also, what will be the pressure drop due to fluidization? And thirdly, to what extent will the bed expand at a certain flow rate of fluid? Meaning that if you increase the fluid velocity, what will be the bed length? So these questions need to be answered from the perspective of design of a fluidized bed. Now, before going into answering those questions, let's look at some of the fundamental theories behind the operation of a fluidized bed. And these are all coming from fluid mechanics. So first thing about some aspects of flow past immersed bodies. So typically in fluid dynamics, we learn about the concept of frictional loss of flow of fluid inside a pipe. That's a common day-to-day problem that we encounter. Similar phenomena may occur when fluid flows around an immersed solid object. For example, in settling, there is a relative velocity between the solid and the fluid. So fluid is passing through. So there is a flow around the solids. In a packed bed, for example, in drying or filtration, flow happens through the bed and thus around solid particles. In a heat exchanger, on the shell side, there is flow past tube bundles. So that's another example of flowing past solid particles. So these are some of the examples where flow past solid particles take place. Now a concept in the flow past solid particles is what is called this drag forces. Now there are two types of drag forces that needs to be considered. So when fluid flows over a solid surface, there is a transfer of momentum perpendicular to the surface, and that results in a tangential shear stress or drag on the smooth surface, and that stress is parallel to the direction of the flow, and this is what is called this skin or wall drag. However, there is another type of drag force involved beside this skin drag. If the fluid has to change its direction to pass around a solid body, significant additional frictional losses will occur, and this is what is called this form drag. So there is the skin drag and there is this form drag. The skin drag or the tangential stress on the body because of the velocity gradient in the boundary layer is the skin friction. So outside this boundary layer, the fluid changes direction to pass around the body, and the velocity increases near the front and then decreases, causing an acceleration near the front and then a deceleration of the fluid. So this causes an additional force on the body, and this is what is called this form drag. So form drag is due to the change in the fluid velocity, meaning due to the acceleration and deceleration of the fluid. The separation of the boundary layer occurs and a wake covering the entire rear of the body occurs when large eddies are present and contribute to the form drag. So you see later through the schematic diagram what this is. So for form drag for bodies can be minimized by estimating the body which forces the separation point forward and toward the rear of the body, reducing the size of the wake. So these are all very fundamentals in fluid mechanics and the design of surfaces to favor the aerodynamics of systems. This diagram shows the skin drag and the form drag. So you have a solid surface here, fluid is passing parallel to the solid surface, and because of the velocity gradient in the boundary layer, the relative velocity causes a stress on the surface, and that's what is called this skin drag. On the other hand, the particles need to change direction and need to accelerate and decelerate, and in doing so, if you have a spherical particles, on the back of it there is a turbulent motion of the fluid, and that causes some additional forces on the solid particle itself, and that's what is called this form drag. And different design of solid surfaces can be modified to reduce the form drag, and that's an entire topic on designing of solid surfaces to favor the aerodynamics of a process. Now there is another concept called this flow separation. So fluid very close to the surface of the solid slows down, and a thin slow moving fluid layer called the boundary layer is formed on the solid surface. So we know that due to the viscous forces at the solid surface, what we call this no slip boundary condition, so the fluid adjacent to the surface do not move, and there is a velocity gradient among the fluid layers adjacent to the solid surface, and that's what's called this boundary layer. Now the inside the boundary layer, the flow momentum is quite low since it's experiencing strong viscous flow resistance. Therefore, the boundary layer flow is sensitive to the external pressure gradient. Now, with the pressure decrease in the direction of the flow, the pressure gradient is said to be favorable. In this case, the pressure force can assist the flow movement and there is no flow retardation. However, if the pressure is increasing in the direction of the flow, that is caused because of the change in the fluid velocity, an adverse pressure gradient condition exists. So in addition to the presence of a strong viscous force, the fluid particles now have to move against the increasing pressure force. Therefore, the fluid particles could be stopped or its direction of flow can be reversed, that causing the neighboring particles to move away from the surface, and this phenomenon is called what is called this boundary layer separation. Now there is another term called the wake. So consider a fluid particle flowing within the boundary layer around the circular cylinder. So pressure is maximum at the stagnation point and gradually decrease along the front half of the cylinder. The flow stays attached in the favorable pressure region. However, the pressure starts to increase in the rear half and the particle experience an adverse pressure gradient. Consequently, the flow separates from the surface and creating a highly turbulent region behind the cylinder, and that's called this wake. The pressure inside the wake region remains low as the flow separates and a net pressure force is produced, and this is called this pressure drag. Now those are some basics about the flow patterns and the different forces acting on solid particles. Now to numerically characterize those forces, let's talk about the concept of what is called this coefficient of drag. So for fluid flowing through pipes, a friction factor is defined, and the friction factor is defined as the ratio of the shear stress to the product of velocity head and density. So for drag force, a similar factor called the drag coefficient is defined. So its Fd is the total drag and Ap is the projected area of the particle. Average drag per unit area is given by Fd over Ap, and the drag coefficient, this is defined as the ratio of Fd over Ap to the product of fluid density and velocity. So Cd becomes Fd over Ap by rho u naught squared over 2. So that's the definition of this coefficient of drag. Now we need to understand the concept of what is called this projected area. Now projected area of a particle is the area of the particle seen by the fluid. So you can think about if you have a particle and from far away you are projecting a light on it, the shade that you will see behind the particle, that is what is called this projected area. So for example, if you hold a sphere and if you have a light from very far away and the shadow of the sphere on the surface behind the sphere, that you can think of the projected area. So for a sphere, the projected area will be a circle. So think about if you have a light coming in from far away, what you can think of the shadow of your head on the surface behind you. That's the projected area of your head. The sphere is symmetric around all directions. So that's why the sphere has the same projected area seen from various directions. However, for other particles, that's not the case. If a cylinder is placed in two different ways, for the first one, it's on its base. The second one, it's on one of its side. So for the first one, if you look at from this direction over here, you see the projected area to be a rectangle. So you see something like this. If you have a light coming from very far away, you will see something like this on the surface behind it. On the other hand, if the cylinder is on its side and the light is coming from this way, you see a circle here with the diameter equal to the diameter of the cylinder itself. So unlike the sphere, for other particles, we'll have different projected area depending on what's the orientation of the particle. Now about the drag coefficients. The drag coefficient of a smooth solid in an incompressible fluid depends on the Reynolds number and the necessary shape factors. So for a given shape, the drag coefficient is a function of Reynolds number, where the Reynolds number is simply given as dV rho over mu. We'll see that the diameter will have different forms. This U naught is the fluid velocity, rho is the fluid density, and mu is the fluid viscosity. So here in this definition, one thing to note is that the naught in U naught refers to what is called this approach velocity, which is the velocity of the fluid far away from the solid particles. Note that as we discussed previously, as the fluid comes closer to the particles, there is acceleration and deceleration of the fluid that takes place. So this U naught is velocity of the fluid far away from the solid particles. This function phi is different for different shape and orientation. These relations are needed to be obtained experimentally. For example, here is these few examples of the relation between this CD and Reynolds number, meaning the drag coefficient, the Reynolds number. We see that for spheres, it has certain type, certain shape of the curve. For discs, there is another shape, and for the cylinders, there is another shape. So again, all these relations are determined experimentally. However, for spherical particles, there is a very well established relation that we'll be using. However, that relation is useful for low Reynolds number. For Reynolds number less than 1, the drag force for spheres can be obtained using this law, what is called this Stokes law, which is given as Fd equals 3 pi mu U naught dP. 3 pi, that's constant, mu is the viscosity of the fluid, U naught is the approach velocity of the fluid, and dP is the diameter of the particles. Now the projected area of a sphere is given by the area of a circle having the same diameter as the sphere, and if we plug in back to that equation, we'll get CD equals 24 over Reynolds number. So that's a straightforward relation for spherical particles. Now so far we have talked about flow past a solid particle. However, our main theme is about flow of fluid through a bed of solids. The resistance to the flow of a fluid through the voids in a bed of a solid is the resultant of the total drag of all particles in the bed. You can consider the drag force acting on one particle, and then you can think about for a bed, the total drag will be sum of all of these drag forces acting on the individual particles. A drag force will cause the pressure drop. So pressure drop through the bed of solid is based on the estimation of the drag on the solid boundaries of the channels through the bed. So fluid is flowing through the channels and it's causing the drag on the solid surface, and that causing the pressure drop, and that pressure drop can be measured by considering the drag forces. Now again, going back to the discussion a little bit details about the phenomena of fluidization and the required conditions. So fluidization is caused by the flow of fluid through a bed of solid particles. Now at low velocity, fluid does not impart enough drag to overcome gravity and particles do not move. So when there is solid particles, the gravitational force acts on the particles, and at low velocity the relative velocity between the solid and the fluid is small, that cannot cause enough drag for the particle to move along with the fluid. However, as the velocity is increased, the drag force increases. The relative velocity between the fluid and the solid increases, and that also causes the pressure drop to increase. However, up to certain velocity, the drag force is not enough to overcome the gravitational force and the bed remains fixed. Now, at higher velocity, the drag plus the buoyancy overcomes the gravitational force and the bed expands, making the bed to be fluidized. Now, one important phenomena here is that after the onset of fluidization, delta P remains constant. However, the length of the bed increases with velocity. Here is the relation between the velocity of the fluid and the pressure drop and the bed length. So here you can see in this diagram, as the velocity is increased, up to certain point the bed does not move, meaning the bed length remains the same. However, up to that point, the pressure drop keeps on increasing because of the increase in the velocity. And after a certain point, what happens that the bed starts to move. And as the bed starts to move, its length keep on increasing. And at that point, the pressure drop becomes constant. If the bed is fluidized and then you start to reduce the velocity, it moves in this direction, meaning the length of the bed keeps on decreasing. However, it does not decrease up to the point here, simply because initially the bed might be packed well. However, a fluidized bed does not go back to its initial length. So after a certain point, the bed length does not decrease any further. It becomes constant at some value. So if you keep on increasing the fluid, it follows one direction. However, when you decrease the fluidization velocity, it follows another path. The same thing with the pressure drop over here. After this point, the pressure keeps on decreasing. So this point is what is called this minimum fluidization velocity. So we consider the minimum fluidization velocity based on the decreasing velocity scenario. In summary, we have talked about the phenomenon of fluidization. We have talked about some fluid mechanics aspect governing the fluidization process, for example the drag force and also the relation between this drag force and pressure drop. Also we have talked about some aspects about the length of the bed. Also we have talked about the profile of pressure drop during the fluidization process. We have talked about the basic fluid mechanics concept, and in the next session we'll talk about how to mathematically characterize the fluidization process using the concept of drag and pressure drop and the forces acting on particles. Thank you.